There is a quiet kind of person who doesn't fit into the noise of this world. You see them watching the way light falls across a room, staring at nothing, overthinking everything. They pause before answering, weighing 10 different realities at once. It's a heavy way to live. Your mind is a constant storm of connections, scanning for meaning because why feels like oxygen. But then, the conversation moves on without you. Did I just ruin everything? They're staring. I know they are. Your throat goes dry, so you just stay silent. People mistake that silence for disinterest, but it's depth. Surface-level chatter feels utterly exhausting when you are constantly diving for pearls on the ocean floor of thought. But that depth comes with a heavy price. You replay events in a brutal loop, dissecting every single sentence, wondering if you said too much or too little. It's called metacognition, the ability to think about your own thinking. You live inside it, watching your own thoughts from the outside, seeing all your flaws in high definition. You analyze love, ambition, and memory until you can almost hold these invisible things in your hands. But in doing so, you lose the simple joy of just being. You walk alone, headphones in, not because you're lonely, but because solitude is your native language. Your emotions move like quiet waves beneath the surface. You sit in a cafe staring at nothing, replaying a mistake from 10 years ago. Cold sweat, a forced smile. You aren't punishing yourself. You're just trying to map the geography of your own mind. This is existential thinking. It's the difference between ordinary anxiety and true awareness. But here's the paradox. A microscope can be too powerful. You start seeing things that weren't meant to be seen so closely. You read too much into silence, turning simple things into psychological puzzles that never resolve. In a modern world that rewards speed and certainty, your pausing looks like hesitation. Your complexity looks like confusion. So you learn to hide. You smile politely while your thoughts wander galaxies away. There is a deep loneliness in this inner life. You crave connection, but only the kind that feels real. You stay guarded, observing quietly until someone shows signs of depth too. And when you finally open the door, it's all the way. Because you don't do halfway hearts. But vulnerability backfires. When reality doesn't align with your expectations, it hurts more. A small betrayal feels cosmic. You notice the exact micro-expression when a stranger avoids eye contact, the way laughter fades when the moment's over, heavy silence. You carry memories not as moments, but as entire ecosystems of feeling. That's why nostalgia hits you so much harder. Your emotions are completely woven into your logic. You literally think and feel at the exact same time. People call you distant, dramatic, or too complicated. But you just see the hidden structure behind everything. You see how fear disguises itself as anger, how love hides behind pride. It is exhausting, but it's also beautiful, because you see possibility where others see endings. The hardest part of being a deep thinker is learning when to stop, when to accept that some answers don't exist yet. The same mind that searches endlessly for truth eventually learns that peace isn't in the answers. It's in the presence. It's in sitting beneath a sky that doesn't explain itself, but still feels infinite. You can recognize this depth not by what a person says, but by the spaces between their words. That pause isn't hesitation. It's precision, a careful search for the truest version of meaning. You process the world like a detective of emotion, reading micro-expressions and tiny shifts in voice. But when you can see through things, it's hard to stay blind. You stop craving surface validation and crave truth instead. Your mind is flooded with mental noise, like 10 radio stations playing at once. Even when you try to rest, your brain keeps rewinding. Most people can distract themselves with noise, but you drown in silence, because silence amplifies everything inside. Thinking confirms your existence, but it can also consume it. You can analyze love until it feels mechanical, studying fear until it becomes entirely predictable. But when you find balance, you become a bridge connecting logic with empathy. You don't see people as good or bad. You see them as stories, shaped by unseen battles. If you always seem to carry a slight melancholy, it isn't sadness. It is just awareness. It's the understanding that beauty and loss are always intertwined. Some of the funniest people you will ever meet are deep thinkers. When you understand the absolute absurdity of life, humor becomes a survival mechanism. You laugh because you see how fragile everything is, and laughter lets you hold it lightly. You aren't ignoring the world. You are just processing 10 layers of what was just said. And when a connection doesn't happen, you retreat. Not out of pride, but protection. Inside, emotions swirl like a storm beneath completely still water. You absorb too much energy that isn't yours, which is why you need solitude to detox from the world. Alone, you reset. Staring out of windows, untangling the noise. It isn't loneliness. It's restoration. Healthy, deep thinkers learn to anchor themselves, translating reflection into something tangible. You question the traditions and assumptions that people follow blindly, not to be rebellious, but out of a deep compassion for truth. You see multiple perspectives, which makes judgment impossible. That is the true burden of empathy. If you love a deep thinker, understand that their love language is curiosity. They show affection in attention, in remembering the smallest details, in seeing you beyond your words. They move slowly when it comes to trust. They test the depth of your intentions. But when they finally let you in, it's because they've decided your soul is safe. Their love is never casual. It is entirely conscious. They remind us that life isn't meant to be skimmed, and that mystery has its own kind of beauty. But let's look closer at the quiet hours, the ones that nobody else witnesses. When the bedroom grows dark and the phone is put away, the armor you wear during the day begins to fracture. Your mind becomes a hyper-vivid theater of past conversations. Why did they look at me that way? Was my tone wrong? You excavate old failures like an archaeologist of regret, digging through years of buried interactions just to find where you went wrong. This hyper-awareness didn't develop in a vacuum. It was built from early survival. Maybe you grew up around unpredictable emotions, learning to read the shifting weather of a household before you even knew your own mind. You became an expert at detecting microshifts in a parent's voice, a sibling's slammed door, a teacher's sigh. You had to know what was coming next, just to feel safe. And now, your adult brain simply refuses to turn that radar off. It is a deeply exhausting way to walk through life, forever waiting for the other shoe to drop. You find yourself anticipating abandonment before a relationship has even truly begun. If someone takes an hour longer to text back, your mind constructs an entire narrative of rejection. They are tired of me. I am too much for them. Your chest tightens. The familiar dread returns. You prepare for the ending before you've even allowed yourself to enjoy the middle. You carry the ghost of every person who ever told you that you were being too sensitive. Those words stick to the ribs like cold grease. They make you doubt your own perception of reality, forcing you to constantly ask yourself if you're overreacting. But you aren't overreacting. You are just experiencing the world with the skin scraped off. Every comment cuts deeper. Every cold shoulder feels freezing. And every moment of emotional distance feels like a literal threat. Think about the times you sat in a crowded room, surrounded by laughter and music, yet felt completely stranded on an island of your own making. You watch people effortlessly exchange words, moving from topic to topic without a single thought about subtext. They just exist. They just float. Meanwhile, you are drowning in the gravity of everything left unsaid. You feel the heavy, invisible currents of tension between couples, the hidden jealousy between friends, the quiet desperation beneath a joke. You absorb it all like a sponge, leaving the social gathering feeling utterly bruised and depleted. People ask why you leave early, or why you don't talk more, unaware that you've just run an emotional marathon inside your head. You need hours, sometimes days, of absolute silence just to scrape other people's energy off your skin. Without that isolation, the walls start closing in, the air feels thin, and the urge to completely disappear becomes overwhelming. There is a profound grief in realizing that most people will only ever love a version of you that fits into their comfort zone. They like your quiet nature until it looks like withdrawal. They value your insight until it challenges their illusions. When you show the raw, unpolished interior of your mind, the part that wrestles with darkness and existential dread, they look at you with pity or fear. They tell you to just stop thinking so much, as if it were a switch you could simply flip. But you can't flip it. If you stopped thinking, you would stop breathing. This internal monologue is the only thing keeping you tethered to existence, even when it feels like it's dragging you under. You look back at your childhood self, that solitary kid who spent recess reading under a tree or staring at bugs in the dirt, and you realize you've always been this way. You were born with an open heart and an open mind, entirely defenseless against the sheer weight of reality. This sensitivity creates a strange relationship with time. You live in a constant state of preemptive nostalgia, mourning the loss of a moment while you are actively living it. You look at a beautiful sunset or sit with a friend you love, and a wave of sadness washes over you because you know this will eventually be a memory. You are already grieving the ending before the chapter closes. It makes it almost impossible to just be happy, because happiness always feels like a hostage to time. You become a collector of unexpressed feelings, bottling up your deepest insights because you've learned that most people don't have the emotional vocabulary to read them. You learn to translate your complex inner universe into simple, digestible sentences just to get through the day. It feels like performing a watered-down version of yourself, a perpetual compromise that leaves you feeling profoundly unseen. You ask yourself, will anyone ever truly understand the language I speak inside? This loneliness is different from being alone. It's the loneliness of being entirely misread. You are labeled as cold or detached by people who don't realize your heart is actually burning alive beneath your ribs. Your outward calm is a carefully constructed dam, holding back a reservoir of intense care, intense grief, and intense devotion. If you let that dam break without warning, you fear the sheer volume of your emotion would wash everyone else away. So you keep the pieces tightly managed. You become the reliable friend, the stable observer, the one who listens to everyone else's tragedies, because you know exactly how to hold space for pain. But when the night ends, no one asks how the holder of space is doing. No one checks on the person who checks on everyone else. You drive home in the dark, hands gripping the steering wheel, listening to the hum of the tires, wondering if anyone will ever hold space for you. You've been burned by your own empathy before. You've trusted people who treated your vulnerability as a curiosity rather than a sacred gift. They pried open your mind, looked at the intricate machinery inside, and then walked away when it became too complicated for them to maintain. Those emotional wounds leave deep scar tissue. They teach you to build higher walls, to design more complex emotional labyrinths that a person must navigate before they can ever get close to you again. Yet, despite the scar tissue, you refuse to become cynical. That is your quiet heroism. In a world that hardens people into stone, you choose to remain soft, even if it means you keep getting bruised. You still look for the poetry in mundane mornings. You still find yourself moved to tears by a chord progression in a song, or the way an old couple holds hands across a table. Your capacity for pain is exactly equal to your capacity for awe. You realize that your overthinking is actually a distorted form of love. You think deeply about the world because you care deeply about it. You dissect your relationships because you want them to be perfect, pure, and free from harm. If you didn't care, your mind would be quiet. The storm inside your head is proof that you are fully awake, refusing to numb yourself to the beautiful, terrifying complexity of being alive. It is an exhausting blessing. You begin to understand that healing isn't about silencing the voice inside your head. It's about changing its tone. It's about learning to look at your own overthinking mind with compassion instead of frustration. When the loop starts, when the what-ifs begin to scream, you learn to gently hold your own hand. You tell yourself, it makes sense that you feel this way. You've been through a lot. You are just trying to keep us safe. This realization is where the shift happens. You stop trying to cure your depth and start honoring it as your greatest strength. You see that your trait introspection allows you to navigate life with an internal compass that most people don't even know exists. You can read the invisible threads of human connection, sense the truth before it's spoken, and create meaning out of absolute chaos. You are a map maker in a world of people who are content to stay lost. You find solace in the fact that history was shaped by people who refused to think shallowly. The artists, the writers, the philosophers who carved out paths for humanity were all intimately acquainted with this exact brand of loneliness. They too sat in dark rooms, staring at ceilings, wondering if they were crazy for seeing so much. You are part of an ancient, invisible lineage of observers, the ones who keep the soul of the world alive. So you let the thoughts come. You let the paragraph blocks of your mind stretch and breathe, refusing to cut them short for an audience that wants quick sound bites. You accept that you move at a different tempo than the rest of society. Let them run. Let them rush toward their certainties and their illusions. You will remain here, in the quiet spaces, filtering through the layers, searching for the truest version of what it means to be human. You sit beneath that infinite sky, the one that doesn't offer a single explanation for your pain, and you realize you don't need one anymore. The beauty isn't in finding the ultimate answer. It's in having a mind vast enough to hold the question. You take a deep, slow breath, letting the tension leave your shoulders. The world is fast, but you are deep, and you finally understand that drowning isn't your destiny. You have finally learned how to float. So if you are a deep thinker, never apologize for your silence. Do not shrink your thoughts to fit into smaller conversations. The world desperately needs minds like yours. People who can see the invisible, question the obvious, and find meaning in the mundane. You might not always fit in, but you were never meant to. You have something this shallow world so easily forgets: depth. And depth in a shallow world is its own kind of light.